Thank you all for your continued participation and engagement as we head into the last and hopefully a very exciting panel on a topic where the goalpost candidly keeps changing every day. I think both the impact as well as the intersection between AI and healthcare across the healthcare value chain, right from the manufacturer to the payer to the provider, and of course, importantly, the patient, is only broadening. I think economies like India, like I said before, have the ability to learn from the developed markets, but I think also set the benchmark. To chat about some of these areas, we have three very accomplished individuals who all bring very different perspectives to the panel, and so should make for a very interesting discussion. We have Harlan, of course, who's both a cardiologist as well as an academic, so can talk about the US state of play, but is also a big believer in the potential that countries like China and India bring. Venki, we will pick Venki's brains on how global healthcare corporations are thinking about AI and some of the parallels for the Indian ecosystem. And finally, Shrikant. I think everyone knows Shrikant as the founder of a very successful AI analytics startup, but only a few know that Shrikant is A, passionate about healthcare, and B, has spawned a couple of AI-driven businesses in the sector, including an India-specific healthcare AI model. So for this session, Shrikant is our India healthcare man. I think first, before we start, I think a big thank you to Harlan and to Venki for making the trip all the way from the US. Brownie points to you, Venki, for giving up tickets to the US Open Finals to be here with us. Scale Up Health, you prioritize Scale Up Health over the tennis match, which we much appreciate. And thank you for squeezing us into your schedule, Shrikant. I think both for Shrikant and for Venki, they've lost some revenue for their organizations by spending a couple of hours with us. So with that, I'm going to start with you, Harlan. What is the impact that you're seeing AI have on the ground in the US in terms of changing behaviors for physicians, for patients, other stakeholders?
Yeah, well, first, just let me say thank you so much for inviting me. What a terrific conference. What an honor to be on with the two of you. You all are talking about whether there's innovation or sparks of amazingness in India, and here I am on the panel with really two people who are playing such a key role in founding companies that are amazing. I mean, India is always creating things that are outstanding. I mean, I feel like there's almost a sense of an inferiority complex from India when you all should be proud of so much. I mean, what you've done, and even the people who've left India to start amazing companies elsewhere. I mean, it's Indian culture. They're Indian, and it's making a difference in the world in so many different ways. But these two companies are remarkable, and you know, there is a lot to be proud of. There's a lot to be proud of. You know, I think that we're at a remarkable inflection point. You know, you say this about AI, but I'm here to tell you that it's going to be all different. It's just going to be different in medicine. We just don't know when. But the power that this provides is extraordinary. And again, you're talking about, do you want to be fast followers or do you want to innovate yourself? Do you want to leapfrog? I've heard that several times today. Well, you know, if you want a moment in history where it's possible to leapfrog, to really get in the front, to be at the edge of what is going to be, now is the moment. And you know, the moment sits within information technology. First of all, it's a core strength in India. A core strength. Look, these are infrastructure companies. They're the pipelines. They're the underpinnings of so many other companies. This is what's happening in India. You know, people come here, they look for engineers. People talk about China and the US. Actually, there's a book that just came out, Breakneck, talking about, you know, in US, the reason we're falling behind is because we've become a country of lawyers. And in China, their leaders are engineers. But you know where the real engineers are? They're in India. India's a country of engineers. Electrical engineering. I mean, you know, that's the background of what you see. You're mechanical engineering. I mean, it's the people who come and lead, they start with thinking about building things. And honestly, you've got all of those pieces there. So, I'm bullish on what's going to happen. I also know that it's not going to stay the same. Now, you asked me what's on the ground in the U.S. Well, we're in a very sort of, early adolescence, maybe even younger with regard to thinking about AI. There are tools that are emerging that can fundamentally shift the way that we're acting. But honestly, the medical institutions have a lot of inertia. And they are spending most of their energy and time thinking about how they can manipulate an existing payment system. They're thinking about, even at academic centers, you know, they're tied into business models that don't encourage new thinking. They just bring about risk. They're just trying to think, even now, we talked about value-based care in the US, there's still, volume is driving revenue. And so, you know, it becomes very difficult. And the place that I've seen the most is the ambient AI. And the reason is because, you know, doctors and institutions are driven where there will be ways to reduce the friction. You know, so if I can have AI in the room with me with the patient that's writing the note, you know, then there's going to be avid adoption because that takes away a pain point. The problem is, because of automation bias, I don't believe the doctors are proofreading the notes. I don't believe that they're checking the notes. So it's almost going straight from the AI into the record. And as you know, that's got its issues. But I think there's plenty of opportunities. I'm just going to say back to India. You know, a country, and the reason China is so amazing now is they are starting to try it out. And in the U.S., it's still, I think, going to be, it's slow until it'll flip finally.
And I'll come back to the China question as well as the reliability question. But for a moment, Venki, let me come to you. You know, from an Infosys perspective, you are seeing large healthcare corporations, whether it's manufacturers, payers, providers. How are they thinking about AI? Are they embracing it? Are they shying away from it? Is the focus more on revenue? Is it cost? Give us a sense of, you know, the types of things they're coming to you for.
Sure. First off, thanks for having me. I would rather be here than US Open. It's okay.
Thank you.
US Open happens every year. Look, last 2 years, 2023 and 2024, in 24 months, we've seen massive adoption of AI, particularly in payers and providers. If I look at payers, even things like claims processing and adjudication, it used to be about, a good firm used to do about 90 to 93% auto adjudication. Now the needle is moving to 96, 97, 98. You have agentic AI now layering on top of that. So there is pretty much solid automation. And in fact, what's happening now is you would think that claims is just an administrative process, but what's happening right now is very fascinating. Payers are looking at claims data, working backwards to figure out how do you drive cost control in terms of utilization. It would never happen. Payers used to always be known as essentially benefit administrators, and I could hear a lot of that from the India context. But increasingly, they are moving towards what is known as care orchestrators in terms of clinical pathways, right? They want to control the cost. And how do you control that cost? It's a darn hard problem. And so they're looking at claims data, injecting their unique secret sauce to figure out how do you drive better benefit design? How do you drive smarter product design to optimize utilization, right? So that's happening on the claims piece. Right, then there is essentially F, which is fraud, waste, and abuse. Big space from the payer side, right? So there is this whole process of payment integrity, and that's always been there. And firms like Fractal have always played a very smart, because you need a lot of data scientists to go through, look at patterns and figure out, strange, requests for reimbursements, etc. But that's a space that's now going to the next level. Then there is the utilization, classic utilization optimization. How do you drive utilization optimization using AI? So that's largely, and of course, there is always optimization in terms of care coordination and how do you optimize cost. So that's on the payer side. The provider side has also been fascinating, and Dr. Harlan, you mentioned that one is essentially clinical documentation driven by ambient AI, been an absolute game changer. It's been game changer for two reasons. One is there is huge uptake by clinicians, providers, essentially they love it. They love it because it's not a technology that has been imposed on them, but it actually helps them in their workflow. So they can spend more time with the patient. Doctors are, they're strangely called data clerks in the US, because for every 1 hour you spend with the patient, they spend 2 hours inputting data, which is frustrating, right? It adds to the provider burnout problem that is huge in the US particularly. Now this thing clinically does documentation, summarization, so that you can focus more on the patient. So they're able to see 5 more patients every day using this beautiful technology that just sits, listens, and then just summarizes, and now can be a co-pilot in your diagnosis process too. So it's literally a second opinion at your service right there, even for the provider. That's huge. Then there are multiple areas in terms of being an opportunity to drive RCM again from a provider perspective. Right? There's about 3% leakage of revenue for hospital systems today. So how do you further optimize that? Right? How do you drive better administrative efficiencies? Because the amount of time providers spend in calling health insurers, because there is eligibility verification, there is claims process in terms of saying, hey, what happened to my claim, right? I submitted those, what happened to that? There's a prior auth approval process, which is extremely frustrating for providers because they're dependent on that for access to care for patients. So there is a whole lot of agentic AI that's kicking in. So a lot of action there happening in the last 24 months, and there's so much more to do.
And that's interesting. It also resonates with what we're seeing within our own partner companies that are focused on the market, right? I think there is a big big focus on trying to optimize this $1 trillion of administrative spend in the US healthcare ecosystem, and how do you reduce that and optimize it. Let me come to you, Shrikant, and I'm going to ask you to hold back your inclination to look at it from a fractal and your core business perspective. But I wanted to start from the west and then converge on India. Outside of Fractal and through Fractal, you have incubated a couple of AI-driven businesses, right? What opportunities and what unmet needs did you see from an India perspective, both for the imaging business as well as what I'm very curious to hear about, as I'm sure the audience is, the India-specific healthcare AI model, Vaidya AI?
Great. Thanks, Prem. So we incubated Cure.ai in 2015-16, and many of you who have been in the AI space for a long time know that huge amount of excitement was generated in the space of AI around 2014, when we started image models starting to outperform human capability, right? And there was a book called I think this was by Nick Bostrom, called I don't know if you read some of those books, and I was also pretty clear that Fractal has to go and spin off, build a company, AI native company, and we decided to do it in healthcare because we felt that healthcare is really the space where the tremendous opportunity exists in India. So we decided to incubate Cure. I hired Prashant. We sort of started the Cure.ai business. Now, Cure.ai is the most preeminent AI radiology company in the world today. It's got 27 FDA clearances. It's touched 32 million lives so far in just scanning population, and a lot of them in India, but around the world as well, including with a bunch of the NHS trusts, etc., as well as in a number of situations in the US as well. And what we saw was that the big gap between the number of radiologists out there versus the need for radiologists. So there are countries in Europe and other areas also where there's only one radiologist for the whole country, one radiologist for the whole country. We thought that what if we could augment a radiologist through bringing in AI-based scanning, and the first thing we did was we took an X-ray and we said, can we identify 30 or 40 different abnormalities in an X-ray and create an automatic report? So we created that in 2016, 2017, and then got a bunch of FDA clearances. We started, then the big breakthrough was in identifying TB as a use case, because India has a big TB problem, world has a big TB problem. We could diagnose TB from an X-ray. Now, World Health Organization also makes that a default way of sort of screening for TB. So we found value in doing this in Philippines. So we went set up these vans in Philippines where they do a population screening and identify, take the X-rays and then send them back to the headquarters every few days, and then by the time the patients are reached out to, it's 4 to 6 weeks. So patients were lost to follow up. So what we did was to take those X-rays, put a Cure algorithm inside the van, with or without internet. We don't even need the internet. We could just scan them, get that, figure out if they have TB, and then put them on a drug therapy literally in the same day. So that was a huge breakthrough. That was a big. Then we did for COVID, which was also very helpful. And recently, the big success has been in lung cancer. So working with AstraZeneca now around the world, what we are doing is, AstraZeneca has a very good lung cancer drug. Lung cancer survival odds are 70% to 80% if identified early, and if identified late, it's down to 10%. So it's a 7x difference in survival odds. So what we're doing is going around the world, screening populations for lung cancer and putting them on a lung cancer drug earlier than otherwise. And that has also been extraordinarily successful. Now we have recently developed a note-taking app, which is also taking off quite well, a bit like the Abridge, which is getting a lot of traction. So that's on Cure.ai. And recently what we also did was to build a India healthcare LLM, which we call as Vaidya.ai, which we have made it public. It's free to everyone. We're already seeing tremendous usage. It's also available on WhatsApp. So that makes it very India specific, because India is a WhatsApp country. As you know, we all spend so much time on WhatsApp. So you can send an image, you can send your medical report, your ECG, your X-ray, and it just gives you really good advice instantly. But the idea is to help you prepare for a doctor visit and also post a doctor visit, because you go to a doctor and then literally 5 minutes after you come out, you realize that, oh, this is the 10 question I should have asked, but I forgot to ask.
And you can do some of that on Chat GPT, but why did you think about Vaidya AI and why something specific for India?
It's a great question. These models are evolving very fast, right? At the time we built it, Vaidya.ai was absolutely the state of the art in terms of results, way ahead of ChatGPT, ahead of Grok 3 and so on. Now we have Grok 4, we have GPT-5, and we are sort of benchmarked, but maybe it's not, the differentiation is not much. So this is happening very quickly, but the idea of Vaidya is to be a healthcare app and not just a generic app, so that you can now put your health records and it will remember your health data for a long time, and therefore it will give you more and more advice, and it will suggest the next best health action for you. That's the way in which we are moving, and also to prepare you, even with maybe we're just talking to, for example, the Mumbai Municipal Corporation, BMC, and I've just got to learn from them that they have 8 million OPD visits every year. Just the BMC hospitals have 8 million OPD visits a year. And the idea is, what if we can put this before an OPD visit? Let's say we create a briefing note that the doctor can see, save time, and just after the visit, we can also have some follow-up with the patient. This can be quite game-changing for a country where we have so many quacks, we have such poor overall primary healthcare facilities. This will be a game-changing thing for India.
Very helpful. Harlan, you wanted to add something?
I just want to add a few. First of all, these are inspiring words. Look, of course, this AI can be used for administrative back office kind of functions. I mean, it's getting crazy because the docs in our country are using AI to generate appeals for denials from the insurance company. The insurance companies are using AI to write back to the doctors, and so it's creating this endless loop. That's why we're going to run out of electricity, because of these pre-authorization things that are going to be going on. And it doesn't help anyone in the end. It doesn't help anyone. But the prospect of actually massively improving care is what's within our grasp. Look, there's going to be a super medical intelligence at our fingertips in 6 months, in 1 year, and within 5, I guarantee you. So I give you probabilities, 100% within 5 years. But we already have some of it now. And the question will be, how will we do it to elevate quality? Ensure no matter where you live. Maybe it's fine to have one radiologist, actually, if we have all this set up. But here's the thing that's so fascinating about this. These technologies are enabling us not just to replicate what, let's just say I could identify who the very best cardiologist was in the world. Not just to replicate that person, but actually supersede what they can do. So like we put together programs where we're reading electrocardiograms. The electrocardiograms actually have information that you can infer that no cardiologist can read based on their training, but can be equivalent to an ultrasound. So we can tell structural heart disease, we can tell hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. We can actually make diagnoses with high accuracy that don't follow the rules that doctors have been taught for years. I say within 5 years, it's going to be malpractice for cardiologists to be reading electrocardiograms. They need to defer to something that's picking up a higher pattern, but it's the same thing in imaging. So first step, take the place of the radiologist. And the radiologists don't believe this, but they're delusional because they're just pattern recognition, and we can do pattern recognition better with the AI. But it's the fact that we're going to be able to see things that they can't see. So actually, you're going to be able to diagnose TB in a very much more specific, in a precision medicine way. So, you know, we're going to have precision medicine from omics. We're going to have precision medicine from the context of your life. Now, these are going to be digital signatures that come from the information from your testing, from your electrocardiogram, from your images. Digital signatures which are going to enable a very much of a precision medicine world that are not going to be, we're replacing doctors. We're actually at a level of performance far above what humans are able to do. And then it's just going to be a matter of us figuring out, now, how does that fit? Because it's not going to be, how do we fit this into the current system? We're going to be building an entirely new approach if we're to take full advantage of the possibility.
And, you know, let me
add to that.
Please, go on.
Said. I'll give you a little story that we were working with a diagnostics firm in India, and the chief medical officer, and we were actually working on histopathology slides. As you know, these are very large images. They're 3 to 4 gigabytes each. And we were showing some of our results, you know, AI reading those histopathology slides. And she was saying, hey, look, I found an error. There is no cancer in this one, and your model says an error. And we said, okay, just wait. And we zoomed that image a little bit. And once we zoomed it a couple of times, she could see that there was actually cancer there. So it tells you that, you know, as human beings, we can see a room and I can spot, maybe I can recognize 5 faces here, but an AI will recognize every face in this room, right?
But exactly, I think, you know, just on that point, and Harlan, coming back to you, right, and the point Shrikant made, you know, some of the examples you laid out, how do you build confidence, you know, within the physician and the patient community around the reliability of LLM-driven information? And how do you think about the risk of misinformation, especially in a more critical care setting?
So, you know, you want to know what a big opportunity is for businesses. It's going to be in the QC side of this. You know, what's the quality control for what it is you're doing? And that quality control is not going to be one time we have evaluated this and it's good, but it's actually going to require an ongoing quality control, because obviously there's change over time in the performance of the models, the patients change, and the need is going to be to have AI on top of AI. You're going to have layers of AI that are going to be checking on it, plus you may have human in the loop as well. I'd like to think there's still some role for humans in this. But you know, you're asking the right question, and I'll just make this pitch that the research is going to be important to demonstrate what you've got. Just like you've got drugs, you've got devices, we demand evidence. I would like to see us enter a world where we're demanding the same level of evidence, continual evidence and evaluation that's transparent, available, and people can evaluate. Now, you guys can talk about, there are ways with, whether it's RAG architecture, whatever you're going to imply, to try to reduce the noise. I just saw that OpenAI said they figured out why these models are hallucinating, so we'll see. But I also say we're in the first half. You guys do cricket, so I don't know what it is, but in baseball, you say you're in the first half of the first inning. Wait till you see what's coming. Whatever we see now is only the start. So that's why a room like this, you've got to get energized about what's going to happen. Not what can I do with what exists today. Let me imagine what's coming down the pike, and how do I get ready so that we can just now take it for a drive. We're going from horse and buggies to race cars. And I said this to Prem before. It's not like you can stick the V8 engine into the horse and buggy. You need to create an entire new infrastructure that's going to be capable of this.
I don't think you have to worry about that, Harlan. Our imaginations can run wild. But why don't you add, Venki, and then I have a question for you.
Let me show a vision of the future. Dr. Harlan may not even like it, actually. What if AI-based consulting gets safe and cheap, that we reach a stage where we shift from human in the loop to where we are ethically obligated to mandatorily use AI, right? It is safe, it's effective, especially in areas, and this is very specific to India too, or even in the US, in the rural settings, right, where access to care is a huge issue, right? If you look at global ratios, it's about 150 providers for a population size of about 100,000. US is about 250 providers for a population of 100,000. India, it's about 80, 90, right? So there is a significant amount of access to care issues. And so we may be ethically obligated to start using these AI systems as the first line of defense for basic triaging, which is what you were talking about from a lab and pathology side. But even from basic triaging, you could start using AI. It could be multilingual, multimodal, multicultural, multi-contextual, given the variety, especially in India. It could be game-changing.
How are you? Sorry, go on, Harlan.
I was just going to say, I fully endorse it. The question is going to be at what level? They've got these levels for cars, I don't know, what is it, level 6, fully autonomous, you don't do any, And so the question is, what level, and we will start at basic levels. If you've got a dermatology problem, why, for most, 98%, why do you need a dermatologist? Take a picture, figure out what the pattern is, get what you need. So it's just going to be starting up, but I fully endorse what you're saying.
So just one thing, if I may add here, we have a huge opportunity even before this, which is around how doctors use these healthcare AI models. So I'm sure, given we had a full day conference here, somebody may have reported this study, but if not, there's a JAMA study which was published in New York Times. This story is about AI versus ChatGPT, AI versus doctor. So doctor versus ChatGPT. That was the sort of contest. So the contest ran like this. There were 104 previously unpublished medical cases, which are stored in the annals of medical literature, used only for these kinds of tests. No AI model has seen those. So they put those 104 cases, and there were 3 examples: doctor, ChatGPT, doctor plus ChatGPT. Okay. And now the question is, who wins this race? Doctor wins it, ChatGPT wins it, or doctor plus ChatGPT? Let's see how many people in this room will vote for doctor. Very few believers in doctors here. How many people will believe that ChatGPT is going to win this race? Okay, 1 or 2, a few. Okay, and doctor plus ChatGPT? Okay, a lot of them. Okay, so I was just like you, but I was also wrong, and so are you. Okay, because the study shows that ChatGPT alone was at 90% accuracy. 90% accuracy, okay? Doctor alone at 74% accuracy. But now the magic is doctor plus ChatGPT, right? It should be better than both of them. No, it's actually at 76%. It's just 2 points better than the doctor itself. It's because doctors are not willing to use these tools. They don't know how to use them, or they're too arrogant, or something else. That there is no incrementality of these AI tools right now, even though they are themselves very good. And even if you can just design these systems in such a way that doctors can feel more confident, they know how to use it, and they can incorporate them, we are automatically going from 74 to 90 something. And that's really the big opportunity as well, before even that level 5 automation.
Fascinating. Venki, as you've sort of seen this also from a technology perspective over the years, right? Both from your customer base as well as, as you think about, this broad wave. How do you balance, or how do companies, make the balance, or, get to a balance between innovation and compliance, given that all of this data is so sensitive?
You are referring to the US context, or are you talking about India context?
I think India, some of these regulations are still evolving, so
Right.
perhaps more in the developed markets, but I think India is also getting to that place.
Sure. No, this is a great question, because recently we had a real world situation, and this is public information, where Dr. Harlan spoke about prior authorization, and prior authorization, using AI to kind of drive speed in prior authorization is one thing, but denying access to care based on certain algorithms is a problem, right? It's a big problem because, of course, you could say that, look, I looked at the policy document, I looked at the authorization request, as per our policy document and as per the policy, this is what we're supposed to do, right? But the algorithm apparently had some bias, and United Healthcare got slapped for this, right? So moral of the story really is that we, of course, while we get exuberant about the capabilities of AI, what it can do, how it can drive accuracy or even efficacy of what you just spoke about, which is a far better outcomes, you got to put guardrails around it, and this is where regulation is huge. Of course, there's a massive regulation in the US that's evolved. There is regulation in Europe. India, it's evolving. But I couldn't agree more, because we have to take it in baby steps, because before we just get too ahead of ourselves, because we don't even know what we don't know, right? And that's the problem with hallucination, because you don't know when it is hallucinating and when it is not, right? And that can, you can easily step into areas where you didn't intend to, and that's where you need to have very strict guardrails, and you need to kind of take baby steps towards it.
Very helpful. And Shrikant, as you sort of look at it from an India perspective, having innovated products in India, for India and the emerging markets also, are there some, educate us, are there some, AI architecture and training strategies that, allow you to innovate with, lower resources in a country like India?
Yeah, for example, for training Vaidya, and even for training some of the cure models, we needed a lot of doctors and a lot of other qualified people to annotate images. And it certainly is significantly cheaper to do that in India than anywhere else. And in fact, most of the AI, big frontier tech AI companies are also now leveraging India in a very significant way in annotating their data sets, etc. So that's definitely an advantage. Secondly, we were also very fortunate when we started Cure that we could actually strike some very significant data partnerships. So we had the power of enormous amounts of data. We had more than 1 billion, let's say, images that we were used
These
to.
are from hospital systems in India?
Yes,
Okay.
across the world, but certainly a lot from India, and that also we were very fortunate to be in that place. So just from a data partnership standpoint and data annotation standpoint, I think we have a huge advantage in India versus anywhere else. And then we have population scale challenges, distribution. If we haven't cracked this problem yet, we have to be very honest. It's still a struggle. I realize. I mean, actually, I'm totally open to making Vaidya free to the whole country, right? I could put it in every single place in our country and for free. But even that is hard to get that distribution. But if we could get the distribution solved in India, I think we have 1.4 billion people with very insufficient healthcare resources.
And did you find that a lot of this data was available in a way that you could use? Was it structured? Was it properly?
So these are now solved challenges. I mean, even though they will not be fully organized, etc. I think that's a much easier problem to solve. I think we can easily solve those.
So I just have one. So one of the things you're talking about, the need to take care. It's very important to benchmark against the current performance. I won't say that doctors hallucinate, but I will tell you that there's great variability. Every time you look at this, I mean, doctor to doctor, and even a doctor within a practice in the morning versus the afternoon. I mean, there are countless studies showing this. I mean, I'm a proud doctor. Doctors work hard. They do important work. But I will tell you that we don't perform as well as we could. I have a question for you, though, Srikanth, which is, if you're training on images and reports that doctors are doing, how do you create an AI that does better than doctors? Because aren't you training it? How do you avoid training it to make the same mistakes doctors make?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So we don't expect that the training data set is 100% right. And it is able to actually learn from this. And then, for example, you take 1 million images and train the model to recognize, let's say, a TB versus no TB. Then when you score the images back, you will see that it disagrees with the initial doctor's findings in a bunch of places because it has learned from the best of the doctors. So across multiple studies that we have done, and many of them have been published by Mayo Clinic and others also, one of those studies I'll mention, we took, this is a few years, maybe 4 or 5 years back, we took 5,000 images, and we had basically, these images were reported by doctors earlier. Cure also reported them independently. Now, we set up a panel of 3 radiologists, and this study was not run by us, it was run by a third party. We set up a panel of 3 radiologists who would then look at these images afresh and come to a consensus on what's going on. So now we have 3 examples. A doctor who has previously reported that X-ray, then Cure, which has done its own reporting, and then we have 3 panel of 3 radiologists who are agreeing on it. Now you look at these 3 across 5,000 cases. In 4,000 situations, the initial doctor's report and the Cure report agreed with each other. So no problems, right? And with the final consensus also. Remaining 1,000. Now these 3 radiologists are independently scoring it, and they are blind to what the others have reported earlier. So Cure beats the initial doctor 2:1. So that's what you see.
And this gets to Venki's point about, will it become immoral not to use it? I mean, if you think of it like penicillin, if we actually have the chance to raise the level of care, is it going to be moral not to say the systems have to change and start to use them?
And how are you? And Harlan, you continue to make frequent trips to China, right? What are you seeing in China that is interesting for India to learn from? And the question that we think about is, can India go from being under-digitized to being AI-enabled by bypassing an expensive EHR stage? Any learnings from China that we can adopt?
I think the thing in China that makes it irresistible is that they're willing to try. That they have a certain fearlessness around embracing this future, recognizing that there's an imperative to get there. And what I've said when I'm there, I'm impressed by what they do, but I say they have a chance to leapfrog too, to be right in the front, because they're not only, it's not that they have the best LLM yet. I mean, DeepSeek's a whole different thing, it's about efficiency, but I mean, when I talk to people over there, they still think GPT is better than what Baidu's or other people are putting out. But in the medical side, they're willing to try. They've got the numbers like you have the numbers here, and they're willing to iterate. And this is where I think if India has an opportunity, it's about being brave to say, look, I think it's inevitable we're going to get there. We already have tools. that we can trust. We need guardrails, but we have to start doing demonstration projects. We have to start testing out, how would this work? We have to have, you know, the recognition that the status quo is not acceptable. And in order to get to a better future, we have to be willing to try things. And this is what China's doing now, that I think is going to put them in the forefront, because once you start trying, the mode is experience. Hey, we've done this, we know what works. Because ultimately, and this is what you guys are specialists at, it's about how it fits into a workflow. It doesn't have to be the current workflow, but some workflow that is going to enable the cognitive load, the task load. You know, people talk about task load also. You know, what is that task load? Can you create this so it's seamless, easy, people like to use it? The one other study I thought you were going to quote, and I'll stop, I know I'll stop, but just the one other study I thought you were going to quote is where they had ChatGPT versus the doctors doing, they weren't chatbots, but they were interacting with the patient by text. And then they went to say to the patients with blinded, which responses did you find most empathetic? Which ones
The
did
bots
you...
were nicer.
The bots were nicer. They had more time, they were patient, they're willing to do it. We can create systems where people can have great experience and great care, and I still think there's a very important place for doctors. But now the doctors won't have to be doing the paperwork. They will be stewards. They'll be an actual individual too. There's always a place for someone holding their hand, helping them through difficult decisions, helping them to move forward. But let's free the doctors to do the important work, and not put them in a position where they're trying to do work that they can't do as well as another tool.
We're down to the last couple of minutes, and so we'll do a quick do a rapid fire, if that's okay. Top 1 or 2 use cases that you see for AI in India over the next couple of years, beyond, of course, what you do already. Maybe we'll go in reverse order. So Shrikant, starting with you.
Maybe the way I would like to
or
answer
ones
this,
that will scale the fastest, you think?
Maybe the way I'd like to answer this is, just think about, did you see the Google lawsuit that just was, the US Supreme Court recently awarded, asked Google to share its search data with its competitors, right? That was part of the settlement, instead of breaking them up. Why is that? It's because Google has a tremendous data advantage. Like, they see so many search queries that they will always beat Bing. Like, because the infrequently asked questions are very frequently asked on Google, they're not as frequently asked on Bing, so they don't train that well. So data advantage is huge. So I would say that India has the population advantage. We have 1.4 billion people. If we distribute a system like Vaidya across the country, our systems, our models will be ahead of anywhere else in the world. We have that advantage, and that is the reason why you see OpenAI and others desperately trying to penetrate India, is because of that advantage, the number of questions that can ask, the way they can train. So I think our biggest advantage is use the population, distribute a product like Vaidya or Cure, etc., and then just get enormous amounts of data to train and get better. And we will be absolutely frontier models of the world if we did that.
Venki?
Just one, is it?
Yeah.
Gosh,
You can have 4.
I got so many ideas, but look, if I want to get really bold and very, very ambitious, right? And Dr. Harlan spoke about, we're a country of engineers. We can do big things, and we can't beat ourselves up and saying, we'll have to emulate the West. We can actually leapfrog. You don't need EHR systems, trust me. EHR systems were made for insurers so that you can put the freaking CPT code so that they can do claim management. You don't need them, right? Just do ambient scribing, that's it. That's information that's available in a nonlinear way. Then you can use it for whatever you want, right? From claims processing to adjudication to everything you can do. But 2 quick crazy ideas. One is, if I can have OpenAI for diagnostics, where what you're doing, if you could do it at population scale, where you could have imaging data, medical imaging data, you have complete pathology data, universally accessible from a training set, data set perspective. It can be game changing in terms of disease management, in terms of population health management, in terms of value-based care. It's just massive. It's just And we can collaborate when we have to. During COVID, we saw countries collaborating at a data level. You can collaborate and build these open AI for healthcare. Huge opportunity, right? Huge returns on that, but that's one. Second one could be an AI first healthcare provider. Just be AI first on everything, from scheduling to paying whatever premium you got to pay for the insurance, to primary triaging for the patient, to care navigation, to disease management. You can think of the whole spectrum can be AI first, right? It can be a completely AI first company where you control insurance, you control healthcare delivery, you healthcare pharmacy, right? That's one. You can start from now and build a massive system. You can build an Apple of the future in healthcare, vertically integrated.
You can be our Steve Jobs. Harlan?
Prem, you're asking me for an idea after these two geniuses are telling now I've got almost nothing left. But I will say my dream of this, I mentioned this to you, is actually we changed the entire way that this works. Everybody has a personal health record that sits in the cloud that aggregates over time, and everyone has a health AI agent that sits on their shoulder. And it's actually not about routine visits or being able to be seen, but this agent is constantly being able to give you hints, help you, guide you if you're getting sick. And this does still go to your AI first idea. Again, when do you need to see a person? When do you need to get a diagnostic test? But we're actually building these to be highly efficient, very precise, and it gives someone's confidence in I'm not going to say, if I anthropomorphize it, it's a person they know that knows them. It's their AI agent. We didn't talk much about agentic AI, but this is an AI agent, but they've got all of their data. Now you go to India, you got 1.4 billion people, you've got in the cloud everyone's data, you've got the most amazing training data in the world, plus you've got the ability to give every person the chance to say, I've got my own Dr. AI who's fighting for me, whose only interest is helping me, and helping me live a long and healthy life. And by the way, giving me choices, getting to know my preferences, and helping to guide me, and working in concert with the humans who are also still providing services. That's the dream I would see for India, so that we can help solve the gap between the need and what we're able to do. We can solve for that.
I think Dia has given us time for one question. I think we can have several, but can you use the mic, please?
It's not a question, it's more of a perspective I want to share, right? We discuss the role of the AI primarily from a provider's perspective, that how AI can augment the providers in handling the healthcare, right? But to me, like, I'm of a very firm opinion that the future hospitals are going to be tech companies, right? Because it's not only the providers who are going to evolve, it's your consumers of healthcare. I mean, the future hospitals will be treating cyborgs, where you get in a patient who's actually embedded. Actually, Dr. Harlan, indirectly pointed out to us that, right? Okay, where he said that everyone is going to have his own doctor moving along with him. But I'm saying the future patients are going to be having augmented, embedded AI systems into that. Like a patient is going to come to a eye hospital saying, no, there's a problem. He's got a bionic eye, and that is not behaving. So he has no choice but to take help of engineers, tech, and the AI and things like this. Yeah. Thank you.
No, thank you. What an absolutely fascinating panel. Unfortunately, we'll have to take questions to the bar. And my guess is, if we were to have this conversation a year later, I think we will all be surprised by the upside potential that this sector delivers. But thank you to all of you, I think, for all your insights. This has been a really interesting one. Thank you, and over to you, Dia.